Hello mortals, I am the booktube goddess, the #1 drag queen booktuber on YouTube. And it is time for another game of Shelve It or Shove It, the completely superficial way to pick books for my TBR based solely on their cover. Now this month I think I'm just going to do young adult, science fiction, and fantasy. I'm also going to be doing Reindeer Readathon, hosted by Eric of Break Even Books, and so I'll have an eye on that. By the way, the covers I look at are from Goodreads, new releases, and usually I look for the previous month. So for December, I'll be looking at November new releases. Okay, first up is young adult. The first book is How the King of Elfheim Learned to Hate Stories by Holly Black. I'm not a big Holly Black fan. I do appreciate the cover. I like the illustrated fairies on the cover, but I'm going to have to shove it. By the way, if you think I should give Holly Black another try, let me know which book I should read first. Next up is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. And it's a fairly simple cover, but it's very vibrant. It has an Asian feel with a sword with an Asian character on it with gold dragon twirling around it, gold statue of a dragon, and red roses. I like how vibrant the cover is, but I'm just not knowing enough about this. I don't know this author, and this is kind of a generic cover for me. So I'm going to shove it. Next up is Instant Karma by Marissa Meyer. Well, you know I am a big fan of Marissa Meyer's. Loved the Lunar Trilogy, loved the Renegades series, but this looks like a big departure from her. It looks like some type of romance novel, and you know my opinion on romances, so as much as I like Marissa Meyer, I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is Rune Song by Julia Ember. This is kind of an ugly cover, or it doesn't look very professional to me. There is a little elf girl on the cover. It looks like a greeting card, not a greeting card, a playing card. I'm going to have to shove it. And the last book in young adult is Here the Whole Time by Vidor Martins. Looks like a young adult gay romance, more power to it, but I'm not a big fan of romances, so I'm going to have to shove it. Now we move on to science fiction. And the first book is Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. And big surprise, it is the sequel, I'm sure, to Ready Player 1. Now, I got the audiobook of Ready Player 1, and I did not have a great experience for it, and in fact, I was falling asleep a lot trying to listen to it, and therefore I don't think I should pick up Ready Player 2. So even though Ready Player 1 sounds like a story I would really enjoy because there are so many 80s references, I did not have a good experience with the audiobook. Therefore, I would have to go back and reread Ready Player 1 before I get Ready Player 2, and I don't think I'm into that, so I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is The Arrest by Jonathan Lethem, best-selling author of The Feral Detective. Don't know that book, don't know this author. The cover is cute because it looks like a retro science fiction illustration or painting, but it's not enough to get me into it, so I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is The Preserve, a novel by Ariel S. Winter. Bold, innovative, and thrilling by Stephen King. I wonder if this is a horror? I don't know. The cover has some trees and they look kind of psychedelic by the title The Preserve. Maybe it's some type of ecological science fiction, but I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is an Empire Strikes Back book, 40 stories celebrating 40 years of The Empire Strikes Back from a certain point of view. A bunch of different authors, including Martha Wells, there's Hank Green, S.A. Chakraborty, R.F. Kuang. And normally I wouldn't get a Star Wars books, but I'm just kind of interested in short stories by all these different authors based on, I assume, The Empire Strikes Back. I'm going to shelve this. And finally, in science fiction, Nofek Gloss by Essa Hansen. And it looks like a transformer on the cover. Not very interested in this. I'm going to have to shove it. Okay, I have to admit, I glanced at fantasy, and the next book is I'm going to shelve it. Big spoiler, but it's Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. Love this series, love this writer. It is book 4 of the Stormlight trilogy, but just looking at the cover, it is absolutely gorgeous. There is a woman on the cover with, looks like there's geometric shapes behind her on one side and a sunrise on the other. This is Shallan, but I assume this is the main character with the awesome magic powers that lets her travel to other dimensions. Yeah, this is getting shelved. So moving on. Now this next book, I'm sure most of you are familiar with. I am too. The Burning God, which is the conclusion to the Poppy Wars trilogy. I think it's a conclusion, but it's the next book in the sequence by R.F. Kuang. Now I'm going to shove this, but here's the reason why. I am listening to this on audiobook, not this book, but I'm on the second book. And I only treat myself to listening to an audiobook when I go jogging. So I'm probably not going to read this month. It's going to be in my queue for audiobooks. But just to let you know, if this wasn't the series I'm using to exercise with, I would obviously be picking it. But just because I know I'm not going to read it this month, I'm going to have to shove it. There's a bunch of caveats there. Next up is Nora Roberts' The Awakening, the Dragonheart Legacy Book 1. Now the name Nora Roberts is familiar to me. I recognize it, but isn't she a romance author? Maybe she's dipping into fantasy? I don't know, but it's book 1 of a series, so I'm going to shove it. Next up is The Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter. And I do like this cover. It's a dragon head, but it looks like it's a mask, and there's a carvings around it. I'm intrigued by this. I'm going to shelve it. And the last book in fantasy is Earth Eater, a novel by Dolores Reyes, and it's kind of ugly. It looks like blobs of paint, maybe, and there's like twigs around it. Maybe it's like an artist got frustrated and threw paint on his painting. I don't know. I'm not very interested just by the cover, so I am going to shove it. Okay, so I did not pick any young adult books. For science fiction, I picked The Empire Strikes Back short stories. I don't know why I picked it now. Not usually into compilations, but I guess I am kind of curious with all these authors, their take on Empire Strikes Back. In fantasy, I picked Brandon Sanderson's Rhythm of War and The Fires of Vengeance. Don't know anything about that one. So, well, as you know, I am definitely going to do Rhythm of War. And I know these are huge books. They're like 1,000 pages or more. So I think I'm just going to pick Rhythm of War. I don't want to overcommit myself because I also want to do a readathon. So this book will be in the readathon, and I'll have to think about another book. So that's it. My one book, Rhythm of War, Brandon Sanderson. Probably not a surprise to anyone. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe if you want to see more. That's all I have for you. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.